Have you ever walked away from a conversation with a strange, unsettled feeling in your gut? You can't quite explain it, but something felt off, like the person you were talking to wasn't telling the full truth, or worse, was twisting it just enough to make you doubt yourself. That's not your imagination. That's manipulation. And more often than not, it starts with a question. Yes, a question. Not a shout, not an insult. Just a few words, casually dropped into conversation like harmless curiosity. But underneath, it's a trap. In this video, we're going to uncover 5 deceptively simple questions that manipulators use all the time to gain your trust, to confuse you, and ultimately to control the conversation while betraying you in plain sight. And here's the thing, these aren't rare tactics. These questions show up in everyday life, between friends, in family arguments, in the workplace, in romantic relationships, even in small talk. And because they're framed like ordinary questions, we almost never spot the danger. We let our guard down. We explain ourselves. We justify our feelings. And just like that, we hand over our emotional power to someone who never deserved it. But not after today. Once you recognize these manipulative questions for what they are, something changes. You develop what I like to call emotional armor, a kind of quiet strength. You start noticing the patterns, you spot the guilt trips, you stop second-guessing your instincts, and most importantly, you stop apologizing for simply asking the truth. So here's my advice as we begin. Don't skip around. Each question builds on the one before it, creating a complete blueprint of how deception works in the real world. If you miss one, you're only seeing part of the game. And believe me, manipulators are playing the whole game. You deserve to know how it works. You deserve to defend your peace. And you deserve to walk into every conversation with your eyes wide open. So get comfortable, or better yet, sit up straight. This isn't just a video. It's a crash course in psychological self-defense, one that could save you from years of confusion, anxiety, and betrayal. And even if you've been tricked before, even if you've trusted the wrong people and felt foolish afterward, don't blame yourself. We've all fallen for these tactics. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you human. What matters is what you do next. Are you ready to stop being disarmed by nice-sounding lies? Are you ready to start recognizing the red flags before they wreck your confidence? Then let's begin. Because the first question we're about to expose is one you've definitely heard before. And once you see it for what it truly is, you'll never hear it the same way again. 1. Don't you trust me? Let's talk about one of the most deceptively powerful questions in the manipulator's playbook. Don't you trust me? 4 little words. Harmless on the surface, right? But make no mistake, this question isn't about rebuilding trust. It's about controlling the narrative. Think back for a second. Have you ever confronted someone about something that didn't quite sit right? Maybe your partner went radio silent for hours. Your coworker missed a critical deadline, or a friend kept asking for help but never returned the favor. And instead of a real answer, you got hit with, "Don't you trust me?" What did that question make you feel? Probably a little guilty, a little defensive, maybe even ashamed for asking in the first place. And that's exactly the point. This question is a psychological sleight of hand. It shifts the spotlight away from their questionable behavior and shines it directly on you. Instead of explaining their actions, they're suddenly questioning your loyalty, your judgment, your character. It's like this. Imagine a child caught red-handed with cookie crumbs all over their mouth. Instead of explaining the empty cookie jar, they look at you and say, "Don't you believe me?" Same tactic, just grown-up language. Now here's the catch. Most of us are wired to maintain harmony in relationships. We hate conflict. We want to be seen as kind, trusting, good people. So when someone throws this question at us, our first instinct is to defend ourselves, not to dig deeper. That guilt becomes a weapon, and manipulators know it. Let's look at a few real-world examples. Your partner disappears for half the day without a word. You ask where they were, and they shoot back, "Don't you trust me?" Suddenly, you're the one on trial. Your coworker misses a big deadline for the third time. You check in, and they reply, "Don't you trust that I'll get it done?" Now it feels like you're micromanaging. Your friend asks for money again. You hesitate, and they respond, "Wow, don't you trust me?" Now you're the bad guy for having boundaries. See the pattern? Instead of addressing your concern, they make you question your own right to even have the concern. And often, they'll reinforce this with even more manipulation. Crossed arms, a raised voice, or emotionally charged examples of when they were trustworthy. "Remember when I helped you last year? Didn't I support you during your breakup?" All meant to drown your current concern in a flood of past goodwill. But trust doesn't work that way. Trust isn't a trophy you win once and never have to earn again. It's built through consistent transparency, not deflection, not guilt, not manipulation. So how do you respond when someone hits you with, "Don't you trust me?" Here's the secret. Stay grounded in the present moment. You can say, "Well, this isn't about trust in general. I'm asking about this specific situation." Or, "I want to understand what's going on. Let's stay focused on that." Or even, "Trust grows when we're honest with each other, not when questions get avoided." These responses reclaim your power. They shift the conversation away from emotional pressure and back toward clarity. And more importantly, they protect your right to ask questions. You should never feel guilty for wanting clarity. You should never feel ashamed for protecting your peace. If someone reacts defensively or turns the issue into a loyalty test, that's not your problem to fix. That's a red flag. And once you start noticing it, you'll see it everywhere. Because the people who say, "Don't you trust me?" are rarely the ones who've earned that trust through openness. More often, they're the ones trying to avoid accountability, not earn it. So the next time someone tries to guilt you into silence, pause, breathe, and remember this. Asking honest questions isn't a betrayal. It's a form of self-respect. And no one, no matter how close, should make you feel bad for wanting the truth. 2. Why would I lie about that? Now let's move to another dangerously deceptive question. The kind that feels like honesty, but is actually smoke and mirrors. Why would I lie about that? Sounds reasonable, right? But here's the thing. It's not a real question. It's a trick. When someone says, "Why would I lie about that?" they're not inviting a discussion. They're not giving you answers. They're planting doubt. They're flipping the script before you even ask your question. Let me paint the picture. I once watched a friend confront her boyfriend after finding flirty messages on his phone. She was calm, direct, and clearly hurt. But before she could even finish her sentence, he shot back, "Why would I lie about something so small?" And in that moment, I watched her face change, from clear and confident to confused and hesitant. That's how fast this tactic works. This question forces you to play defense. It sounds like they're being transparent, but really they're weaponizing logic to make you second-guess yourself. You begin to think, "Yeah, why would they lie? Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I misunderstood." But here's the truth. People lie all the time to protect their image, avoid consequences, win approval, or just maintain control. And some do it so effortlessly, you won't see it coming. So when someone says, "Why would I lie?" they're not proving their innocence. They're trying to shut down your suspicion before it even forms. Let's bring this into real life. A salesperson makes grand promises about a product. When questioned, they laugh it off and say, "Come on, why would I lie and risk my reputation?" Meanwhile, you're stuck with something that doesn't do half of what they claimed. A politician is caught contradicting themselves. And their response, "Why would I lie when it's all on record?" Yet somehow the story keeps changing. A colleague messes up a project and insists, "Why would I lie about something you could easily check?" Counting on the fact that you won't check. Now here's what's really dangerous. This question often comes up before you've even accused them of anything. That's the red flag. It's like someone saying, "I didn't steal the cookie," before you've even walked into the kitchen. That level of defensiveness isn't clarity, it's deflection. And that's what makes this phrase a form of rhetorical gaslighting. It doesn't just manipulate the conversation, it messes with your reality. It suggests that the only reason to question them is if you think they have a motive to lie. But motives aren't always obvious. Some lies are small, some are just convenient, and some are told by people who've lied so much, they've stopped keeping track. So what can you do when someone drops this question on you? Stay grounded, stay focused. You don't have to justify your curiosity. Try saying things like, "I'm not accusing you. I just want to understand what's going on." Or let's not talk about intentions. Let's focus on what actually happened. These responses keep the conversation centered on facts, not feelings, not motives, not emotional manipulation. Because here's what you have to remember. Truth doesn't fear questions. Honest people aren't afraid of being asked for clarity. They don't dodge. They don't distract. They don't try to make you feel guilty for wanting answers. So if someone throws out, "Why would I lie?" especially early in a conversation, ask yourself, why are they trying so hard to convince me before I've even asked for the truth? Because chances are they're not giving you answers. They're giving you an illusion. And once you start recognizing that illusion for what it is, you'll stop being swayed by it. You'll stay grounded in your own perception. You'll know that clarity isn't confrontation. It's just conversation. So next time you hear, "Why would I lie about that?" don't flinch, don't fold, focus. You're not asking for a confession. You're asking for truth. And that's not too much to ask. 3, can you keep a secret? Let me ask you something. Has anyone ever leaned in, lowered their voice, and said to you, "Can you keep a secret?" And in that moment, you felt special, like you'd been chosen, trusted, brought into some exclusive inner circle. But here's what most people don't realize. That warm feeling is exactly what makes this question so dangerous. Because when someone asks you to keep a secret, especially early in a relationship, whether personal or professional, it's often not about trust. It's about testing your boundaries. Let's break it down. When someone says, "Can you keep a secret?" they're creating the illusion of intimacy. They're fast-tracking closeness. And because most of us don't want to seem disloyal or cold, we almost always say yes. But that yes, it's rarely harmless. Saying yes ties you to something you didn't ask for. You become the keeper of information that might compromise your integrity, your relationships, or even your peace of mind. It's a subtle but powerful form of manipulation. Let me give you a few examples. At work, a coworker pulls you aside and whispers, "Can you keep a secret? I overheard something about the boss that no one else knows." Now you're caught in the middle, privy to gossip that could impact your reputation if it spreads. Or a friend says, "Don't tell anyone I told you this, but Sarah's thinking about leaving her husband." It's not your story, it's not your place. But now you're carrying emotional weight that isn't yours. And maybe in a relationship, your partner confesses, "Can you keep a secret? I've been talking to my ex, but it's totally innocent." That last part might be true, or it might be the soft cover for a boundary being crossed. In every case, that question, "Can you keep a secret?" isn't about loyalty. It's about seeing how far you'll go to protect someone else's agenda. And here's the kicker. Once you agree to secrecy, you're no longer just a bystander. You're an accomplice, even if you didn't ask for the information, even if you disagree with it, even if it makes you uncomfortable. You've entered an invisible contract, one where silence is expected, even if it means silencing your own discomfort, values, or instincts. And let me be clear, not all secrets are bad. Some are about birthday parties or surprise proposals. But when someone makes a habit of sharing secrets that damage others, cross ethical lines, or violate trust, that's not vulnerability. That's manipulation. So how do you know when a secret is a setup? Watch for these red flags. Does the person seem overexcited to tell you? Are they sharing something that clearly violates someone else's privacy? Do they make it sound like you're the only one who knows? Is the secret designed to make you see someone else differently or create conflict? If the answer is yes to any of those, you're not being included, you're being used. So how do you protect yourself without seeming cold or dismissive? You stay grounded in your values. You can say, I prefer not to keep secrets that could hurt people. If this puts me in a tough spot later, I'd rather not know. Or simply, why does this need to be a secret? These responses do two things. They set a clear boundary, and they invite the other person to reflect on why they're sharing the information in the first place. Here's the truth no manipulator wants you to know. Healthy relationships, whether at work, in friendships, or in love, aren't built on whispered confessions. They're built on honesty, respect, and mutual safety. So the next time someone asks, can you keep a secret? Don't answer too quickly. Pause. Ask yourself, is this building trust, or is it testing how much I'll tolerate? Because your peace of mind is not the price you should pay to make someone else feel special. And you never owe your silence to someone who's using it to divide, distract, or deceive. 4. Who told you that? Now let's talk about a question that doesn't sound dangerous on the surface, but behind it hides a tactic of pure control. Who told you that? Sounds like a simple question, right? Maybe even logical. But when this phrase is used in moments of tension, of confrontation, or when you've discovered an uncomfortable truth, it's almost never asked in innocence. It's asked to intimidate, to scare you into silence, and most importantly, to find and eliminate the person who gave you that information. You're not just being questioned, you're being hunted. Let me explain. When a manipulator asks, who told you that? Their concern isn't the truth. They're not saying, let's figure this out together. What they're really asking is, who betrayed me? Or, how do I shut this down before it spreads? Think about it. A manager gets exposed for shady behavior, and the first thing they demand is, who told you that? A cheating partner is confronted with receipts, and their first instinct isn't to explain, but to find out which friend ratted them out. A manipulative friend suddenly turns cold and says, so, who's been poisoning you against me? It's not curiosity, it's damage control. And it's designed to do two things. First, shift the focus away from what they did, and 2, make you feel like the bad guy for knowing it all. This question is a psychological ambush. When it hits you, it often comes with a sudden change in energy. Watch closely. Their posture becomes more aggressive, shoulders squared, arms crossed, or leaning in just a little too close. Their tone sharpens, less casual, more calculated. Their eyes narrow, studying your every word, looking for a crack in your response. And if you hesitate, they push harder. Suddenly you feel cornered, pressured, like you've done something wrong for simply having information. But here's what you need to remember. Truth does not require permission. If someone's first reaction to being confronted is to control how you found out instead of addressing what you found out, that's not accountability. That's fear of exposure. They don't want resolution, they want retaliation. So how do you handle this? You hold your ground. Instead of falling into the trap, try saying, that's not really relevant. I want to talk about the issue itself. Or, I've heard this from more than one person. Or even, let's focus on whether it's true, not where it came from. These responses send a clear message. You will not be bullied into silence. They shift the conversation back to the real issue, and they protect the people who trusted you enough to speak up in the first place. Because here's what happens when you give in and reveal your source. You don't just burn that bridge. You teach the manipulator that threats work. And next time, they'll move faster, press harder, and isolate you even more. And this is why recognizing this tactic matters so much. Because in toxic environments, whether at work, in families, or in personal relationships, information is power. And manipulators don't just want control over what you say, they want control over who you talk to. They want to isolate you so you only hear their version of reality. But healthy people, they don't care who said what. They care whether it's true. They ask things like, "Can you help me understand what happened?" Or, "Let's figure out how to make this right." Not, "Who told you that?" with a glare that could cut steel. So if you've ever been on the receiving end of this question and felt that wave of fear or guilt, know this: you're not alone. And you're not wrong for wanting the truth. Don't let intimidation become your silence. Because the moment you stop defending your right to ask hard questions, you start living in someone else's story, not your own. So next time someone demands, "Who told you that?" don't flinch. Don't explain. Don't apologize, and hold your ground. Protect your sources and focus on the truth. Because manipulation hides in the shadows, but your courage brings everything into the light. 5. Don't you remember? Let me ask you something real. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone looked you dead in the eye and said, "Don't you remember?" Even though you absolutely didn't? Maybe it was your partner saying, "We already talked about this, remember?" You agreed. Or your boss telling you, "I told you that deadline changed. Don't you remember?" Or a friend saying, "You were fine with this last week. What changed?" And for a split second, you paused. You asked yourself, "Wait, did I forget? Am I overreacting? Did I miss something?" That right there, that moment of confusion, is exactly what the manipulator wants. This question, "Don't you remember?" is not a harmless prompt. It's a psychological weapon. It's gaslighting, plain and simple. It's designed to make you question your own memory, your perception, your reality. And the longer it's used against you, the more power you lose over your own story. Let's talk about why this works so effectively. Most of us know that memory isn't perfect. We've all forgotten a conversation, missed a detail, or misunderstood something at some point in our lives. So when someone confidently challenges our memory, we're wired to second-guess ourselves. But here's what you need to look out for. Manipulators don't just ask if you remember. They say it like it's an undeniable fact. Their tone is firm. Their expression is calm. Sometimes they'll even throw in extra details to make the false memory more believable. "Don't you remember? It was right after dinner. You were sitting on the couch. We talked about it on Tuesday morning before your coffee. Don't you remember?" And suddenly you feel like you're wrong for not remembering something that never even happened. This is not forgetfulness. This is intentional rewriting. They're not just hoping you'll back down. They're counting on it. Because if they can get you to question this memory, what else might they be able to rewrite next? Your emotions, your boundaries, your sense of what's real and what's not. Let me tell you, this tactic shows up in all kinds of relationships. A partner who insists you agreed to something that was never actually discussed. A manager who blames you for a missed deadline you were never told about. A friend who manipulates you by twisting past events to guilt trip you into compliance. And here's what all these situations have in common. The story always benefits them. The fake memory helps them avoid blame, stay in control, or guilt you into doing what they want. So how do you respond when this happens? First, don't argue in circles. If you genuinely don't remember, you don't have to accept their version of events just because they sound confident. That's not proof, it's just performance. You can calmly say, "That doesn't match my recollection." Or, "Let's focus on the facts we can both verify." Or even, "I take note of important things like this, and I don't have any record of that." These responses protect your mental ground. They don't escalate the conversation, but they do stop the rewriting in its tracks. You're not being combative. You're being clear. Because here's the truth. You have the right to trust your own memory. You have the right to say, "That's not how I remember it." You have the right to stay anchored in what feels true for you, even if someone else tries to shake that foundation. And if you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling small, confused, or even ashamed for not remembering something you know didn't happen, you're not crazy. You're not broken. You were likely being manipulated, but now you see it. And once you see it, you can stop it. You can protect your reality. You can trust your inner compass. And you can start saying, no more. No more rewriting. No more guilt. No more surrendering your truth to someone else's narrative. Because your voice, it matters. And your version of events, it deserves to be heard, even if someone else doesn't like it. So let's take a step back and look at what we've uncovered today. We talked about 5 seemingly simple questions. Questions that, on the surface, sound harmless, even friendly. But when used in the wrong hands, they become tools of manipulation. Let's recap. 1. Don't you trust me? A tactic to guilt you into silence. 2. Why would I lie about that? A subtle trick to make you doubt your instincts. 3. Can you keep a secret? A false invitation to intimacy that tests your boundaries. 4th, who told you that? A power play designed to isolate and intimidate. 5. Don't you remember? The cornerstone of gaslighting meant to rewrite your reality. Now, when you hear them again, because trust me, you will, you won't just hear words. You'll see strategy. You'll recognize the pattern. You'll feel the shift in energy. And most importantly, you'll know how to respond. Because these questions aren't random. They're part of a system designed to disarm, distract, and ultimately control. But knowledge disrupts that system. Awareness breaks the cycle. And today you've taken a powerful step. You've started to build what I call psychological immunity, a layer of inner protection that helps you spot manipulation early and respond with calm confidence. But remember, this is like a muscle. You need to practice. So here's what I want you to do from now on. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Document patterns. If someone keeps using these tactics, write them down. You'll see the truth more clearly. Practice your responses, say them out loud, rehearse them, make them your own. So the next time someone tries to twist the truth, you don't panic, you stay centered. And if this video opened your eyes even just a little, then do one more thing, share it. Because this kind of knowledge isn't just for you. It's for your friends, your family, your coworkers, anyone who's ever walked away from a conversation feeling confused, manipulated, or just small. When we recognize these tactics as a community, we take away their power. We build safer spaces, stronger boundaries, and more honest connections. Let me leave you with this. Manipulation destroys trust. Authenticity builds it. So choose truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Choose clarity, even when others try to cloud it. And above all, choose yourself, your peace, your perception, and your voice. You're not being difficult, you're being discerning. And there is nothing wrong with standing your ground. If this video spoke to you, please take a second to subscribe, drop a comment below about which tactic you've seen the most in your life, and share this video with someone who might need it. And until next time, stay sharp, stay strong, and I'll see you in the next one.